The Class by RIT report in Edugence shows you what specific TEKS and learning statements a student is ready to learn based on their MAP score. Access Edugence through your web desk, and it will automatically log you onto the website. In the top right, next to your name, click on the Apps icon and choose Reports. Scroll down in the center of the page, under where it says Plano Assessments, and choose Class by RIT. It is the very last option in the purple box. From here on the top right, you can choose which MAP test you would like to see: reading, math, science, or language usage. Depending on your level of access to Edugence, you may be able to see an individual teacher's class or an entire grade. Make your selections at the top and then click on the green button. This report shows each of the strands of MAP, and every student appears in every strand. In this example, we're looking at math, so we have all 4 of the math strands. These strands align to the reporting categories in your TEKS and to the reporting categories that are tested on STAR. This chart can be used to group students for different learning opportunities, including identifying concepts and skills that most students are ready to learn, compare concepts students are ready to learn with what is appearing next in the curriculum, develop plans to scaffold students from where they are ready to learn and where they need to be, planning small group instruction, grouping by relative weaknesses, planning partner work, group by performance in the strand you are teaching, planning stations, grouping by performance in the strand you're currently teaching, flexible grouping within class, grouping students by relative weaknesses or the current unit of instruction, flexible grouping across the grade level, grouping by relative weaknesses or the current unit of instruction, tutoring opportunities, grouping by relative weaknesses, and finally planning intervention and enrichment time, either grouping by relative weaknesses or the current unit of instruction. Each student appears in every strand. The number that is in parentheses next to their name is their overall MAP score. However, they are placed in that particular strand depending on how they performed in that strand. So in this example, the student is placed in the 191 to 200 range for numerical representations. However, the overall MAP score is a 208. This tells me that the strand of numerical representations is a relative weakness for this student because their overall MAP score is higher than where they are placed in this particular strand. You may choose to work on the strand of a student's relative weakness, regardless of the unit of study you're currently teaching. You may also choose to look at current or upcoming units and focus on those skills that a student may need to experience prior to the formal lesson. You have 2 options to print the first view in Class by RIT. In the top right, you can click on the red PDF icon to export a PDF version of the chart. It will be on several pages as the table breaks for every particular strand. You also have the option to export to Excel. So how do I access individual learning statements to learn more about what students are ready to learn? When you hover your mouse over a particular group of students, that group of students will be highlighted in yellow. Click in that box to see the learning statements that these students are ready to learn. The learning statements on the right come directly from NWEA, from the Learning Continuum. Several questions on the MAP test are framed around each learning statement at various levels of difficulty. The students who are placed in this particular RIT range are ready to learn this content. In this case, I'm looking at 3rd grade numerical representations and relationships, 191 to 200. Any student who's placed in this strand in this grade level is ready to learn this content. They have not yet mastered it. NWEA uses the term develop to describe the action needed on these statements. These are things students are ready to develop. You can also think of this as the student's instructional level. This is what the student is ready to learn, not what they have mastered. Note that these learning statements on the right are not all of the learning statements present in this RIT range. We have filtered the list of learning statements from NWEA by grade level. What is displayed are the learning statements within this RIT range that correspond to on-grade level TEKS. On the left, the grade level standards are displayed that correspond to the learning statements on the right. The individual learning statements are not intended to replace the curriculum. Rather, they're meant to be supplemental. The information in Class by RIT is particularly helpful to inform instruction for students at the very high end or the very low end of the bell curve. So how can I use Class by RIT? You can look at the cells in each strand where most students fall. Drill down within these cells to see what learning statements and TEKS the students are ready to learn next. This will be helpful when planning the upcoming unit to address what most students are ready to learn. For those students who fall below, where most of your class appears in the strand, look at the previous RIT ranges to see what lower performing students are ready to learn. Make a plan to scaffold instruction from where the students are to where they need to be by the end of the unit. Once a student has mastered the content in one RIT range, you know where to go next instructionally because MAP is based on a learning continuum. On the right side of the page, you can navigate left and right across the RIT bands. Because MAP is based on a continuum, once the student has mastered the current RIT range, you can go up to the next RIT band to find additional skills to instruct, without having to wait to reassess the student in the next season. It is critical to look at the learning continuum filtered by grade level, because that is what we are responsible to teach. We first look at the current grade level TEKS that need instruction. We can then navigate away from the current grade level to fill in gaps if necessary. We only navigate up a grade in the rare case that there are no current grade level standards in any strand, and we have evidence that the student has mastered all current grade level standards. You can print this page by using the PDF icon in the top right. This way to print is particularly helpful when sharing this information with parents at parent conferences. You can also use this information for goal setting with students. You can print this page and highlight with students some areas that they can set goals based on. There is another way to print the individual learning statements that may be helpful for you for planning purposes. When you're back on the table view, select at least one RIT range from the top by clicking the checkbox, and at least one strand by clicking the checkbox on the side. Once you've selected a strand and a RIT range, click on the purple PDF button in the top right. This option will allow you to print a view that has student names at the top, plus the learning statements and TEKS that they are ready to learn. This will be helpful for you in planning purposes. This can also be shared with other staff members in your building who are working with your students, showing them what particular strands and learning statements a student may need additional help with.